Hi guys, welcome to the next lesson, and in this one let's talk about components. Components are super important in system flow. Basically, system flow is made out of components. The core concept in Webflow and in Figma, we have the concept of master components. It's the same in Webflow and Figma, and in the master components we can define all of the properties for all of the instances that will inherit those properties. So the master component in Figma is with this filled chevron, and the empty chevron will have the instances for this component. And if you change the master component, you'll see that the changes are propagated across all of the instances. If you change the instance, those are not propagated to the master component unless you specifically say that you want to update the master component based on the changes for the instance. You can do it from here, from the menu, and also you can, from any instance, you can go to master component from here. So yeah, if you click on this little icon, go to main component, it will automatically go to the master, and you can change the definition in the master component. How to use this concept in practice? Easy. Let's create a new page, because you always start with the new page. You can use our design page. It's always empty, so you can design there, or you can create new page like home and start with empty frame. You press A or F and then select desktop, and I usually use MacBook Pro. That's the most typical resolution that we'll start with for the desktop. And now we want to use the component. We're going to search for it in the assets pane. So this is the most common way to just search for components. You just type in the name of this component. I prefer the least, but you might want to use this grid view with some small thumbnails. But then you have to hover over those thumbnails, and I strongly recommend you to learn the names of the components. Those can be easily remembered. This is just a matter of using them a few times, and now you can just drag and drop, and once you drop the component, you always place an instance of this component on Figma's canvas. You can see that this is the instance because the chevron is empty, and when you make any modifications to this instance, it won't affect the definition of the master component. If you want to go and modify the main component, like the master, you click here from any instance, and you'll be automatically redirected to the page where this main component, so the definition of the master component, lives. Now about the changes to the components. In order to make the change, you either make it on the instance, or like we did in Webflow, you can unlink this component. So in Figma's dictionary, this is basically detaching the instance. So you can detach the instance or press Option Command B. I recommend you to just remember this shortcut. It's pretty important. We'll be doing that a lot. Now we've detached this component from its master, and we can make whatever changes we want. But you can see that inside we have one more nested component, and we have to detach yet another instance. Now we don't have any chevrons in here. This means that we don't have elements connected to any main components whatsoever, and we can easily make changes without affecting anything else. Now let's go to assets once more, and let's search for a component. That might be a bit more complicated component, and it has a lot of nested components, like this pricing component, and it contains a lot of different components inside of this instance. When you unlink it, you'll see that we have components for the lease and buttons, and this is just to stay consistent with the framework. We basically create this framework with little bits and pieces like atoms, if you know atomic design, and then we store those atoms as components, and we put them in every other component, so that when you change one component, all of the framework will update accordingly. Now, what if you want to unlink all of the instances to modify this freely in Figma? It's as easy as pressing return. If you press return, enter on PC, you will go down the structure of the layers, and that would select all of the children of the parent element. Now, once you have children selected, you can right click and detach this instance. Now you are on the sibling, and if you press return once again, just don't click anything else, just press return, you will then select all of the children of all of the sibling that you had selected. So if you press return, 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 and then you will go down the structure but select all of the elements. Now here we also have instances. So what we can do is right click, and again we can detach those elements. So detach instances, And once again, I can see that inside we have some more instances of components. This is actually intended because we want to keep those components so that they change throughout the whole framework, throughout the whole system. In Figma, there's no classes, CSS classes, so there is no way we can handle those changes across the entire system without components. But right now, if you want to freely make changes, press return once again, and then you will select again all of the children of this selected sibling. So we have parent layers and we have children layers. If you press return, once again, you'll be able to select all of the least items in this particular case and unlink them from their master components. So yeah, this is how it works. You can press Command Option B, or you can again right click and select detach instances. And now I've cleared almost all of the instances. I can go one level deeper with return and make sure that all of the instances are cleared. Now you have everything, no chevrons at all. You have everything editable. It's not connected to components in any way, and you can freely customize and modify those elements. So I wanted to make sure that you know how to go down the structure of layers with return and how to detach those from master components. Again, if you have some components here, I'm just undoing those actions. What you can do is you can go to the definition of the main component by clicking on this little chevron in the right-hand menu, or you can also modify the instance of the element. So you can work directly on the instance and you can change its properties in here. And then if you decide that the changes to this instance should be propagated across the entire system flow, across all of the components that contains this in particular instance, you'd have to push those changes to the master, and you can do it straight from here. You can click on this little three dots and select push overrides to main components. You don't have to go to its definition and change it. You can just tweak it live and then make changes and push those changes across the all framework elements that uses this component. You can also from here reset all overrides to bring it to the starting position. And if you want to only reset the changes you've made to the size, so resize this element, you want to somehow bring it back to the original state, you can reset the size. So that's all about components. Hope you'll experiment with them. This is the most important concept in Figma. This is slightly different than what we have in Webflow, because in Webflow we also have classes that hold the structure of the element and the styling. Here we don't have it in Figma. So once you detach the component, you won't have any link to any other elements across the framework. I hope you experiment with that, and I'll see you in the next lessons.